The greatest mistake a man can make is thinking a woman over 50 has nothing left to offer. In truth, she has everything he's not ready to face. Have you ever noticed how society grows quiet around older women? How they slowly become invisible in conversations, workplaces, even relationships? That silence isn't weakness. It's the gathering of power that most men can't recognize until it's too late. Carl Jung once suggested that what you resist not only persists, but grows stronger. When a man ignores the mature feminine, he's not avoiding weakness. He's avoiding his own shadow. In youth, women are often valued for beauty, softness, and social energy. But after 50, something happens. Many women stop trying to perform for the world. They shed expectations like a snake sheds its skin. They no longer need validation, and that terrifies a man who has built his worth on being the center of attention. When you ignore what you fear, it doesn't disappear. It becomes your mirror. This is what Jung called the confrontation with the shadow. For many men, their shadow hides an unspoken fear, the fear of irrelevance, aging, and losing control. Her confident woman over 50 embodies all of that, not as a threat, but as a truth he cannot escape. Imagine a man at a dinner party. Across the table is a woman in her 50s. She listens more than she talks. She doesn't compete for attention. She's seen storms he can't name. He ignores her, not because she has no power, but because her calm unnerves him. Her silence speaks of depth he's never dared to enter. Psychologically, this is projection. When a man refuses to acknowledge the mature feminine, he's actually refusing to acknowledge the aging parts of himself. The woman he ignores today becomes the mirror he avoids tomorrow. Jung spoke often of archetypes, powerful universal energies within the human psyche. One of the most potent feminine archetypes is the crone, not as a withered old woman, but as the keeper of deep knowledge. She's intuition, wisdom, and quiet power. When men dismiss this archetype in real women, they cut themselves off from that very power in themselves. Ignoring a woman over 50 isn't just rude. It's a psychological blind spot. And this blind spot often reveals itself later in life, in failed relationships, emotional emptiness, or midlife crises. Because the truth is simple. A man who only knows how to love a woman in her 20s or 30s often does not know how to love himself when his own youth fades. When he turns away from her, he turns away from the future version of himself. A woman over 50 no longer plays by the rules of performance. She doesn't chase approval, and she doesn't fear solitude. That kind of woman represents the uncontrolled feminine, a force that demands respect, not attention. And this is exactly where many men reveal their greatest weakness. They do not know how to handle a power that doesn't beg to be seen. Because here's the dark truth. When a man ignores a woman over 50, he doesn't just lose her. He loses a portal to understanding his own shadow, his own aging, his own soul, and that portal doesn't stay open forever. Every man carries two lovers in his mind, the young muse he desires, and the wise queen he fears. This isn't just about romance or attraction. This is about power, archetypes, and how the unconscious punishes us for what we refuse to integrate. When a man ignores a woman over 50, what he's really doing is rejecting the crone archetype, the embodiment of intuition, mortality, and deep feminine strength. This is the opposite of the maiden, the young, vibrant, external energy that flatters his ego. The crone doesn't flatter, she reflects. He thinks he's looking away, but in truth the mirror is turning toward him. Many men, consciously or not, build their identity on dominance, being desired, being needed. A woman over 50 often doesn't need him to complete her. That creates an unconscious psychic wound. His ego realizes it has no power here. Instead of facing this wound, the ego defends itself by devaluing her. You'll hear it in subtle cultural whispers. She's past her prime. She's too old for that. She should act her age. But beneath these words is fear. Because a woman over 50 is often the only one in the room who cannot be controlled by attention. This is why Jung emphasized integration of the shadow. The shadow is everything the ego doesn't want to admit. Weakness, fear, envy, aging, mortality. The crone archetype holds all of it in her calm hands. The older woman isn't weak. She's the guardian of the very fears he pretends not to have. In relationships, a younger woman might reflect back his charm, his success, his vitality. But a woman over 50 sees through performance. She's not impressed by shallow games. She doesn't fall for manipulation, and she doesn't build a man's self-worth for him. Many men unconsciously avoid her, not because she lacks beauty, but because her gaze is too penetrating. It reveals what's unfinished inside him. She doesn't need to raise her voice to expose his insecurities. Here's the paradox. The very thing he avoids is the thing he needs to grow. Jung believed that individuation, becoming a whole person, requires us to embrace the parts of ourselves we deny. And aging is one of those parts. When he turns away from the woman over 50, he turns away from his own future. He clings to youth, control, performance. But time isn't interested in his ego. Meanwhile, the woman he ignored is evolving. She's becoming more whole, more real, more powerful. She is not shrinking. He is. In a society obsessed with youth, the mature feminine becomes a taboo archetype. But taboos are powerful. They shape behavior in ways people don't even realize. And the more a man denies this archetype, the more insecure he becomes. He seeks younger partners not out of love, but out of fear of aging. He projects his insecurities onto women. He grows resentful of what he cannot control. And the woman over 50, she becomes a silent reminder of the truth he refuses to face. The shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It grows teeth. This is why some of the most emotionally fragile men are the ones who laugh loudest at older women. Their mockery isn't power, it's panic. But when a man chooses to look instead of ignore, when he faces the mature feminine with respect rather than fear, he doesn't lose power, he gains it. He integrates a forgotten archetype. He embraces mortality without despair. He grows beyond ego into depth, but few men ever do. Most keep running, chasing illusions of youth, never realizing that the woman they ignored was the key to becoming the man they were meant to be. A man who ignores a woman over 50 isn't avoiding her. He's avoiding the mirror that could set him free. Every man ages. Every man loses the armor of youth eventually. But not every man becomes wise. Some grow bitter, clinging to fading illusions. Others awaken, and that awakening almost always comes through confrontation with the shadow. The queen archetype, the evolved crone, is not just a woman. She's a mirror of maturity, strength, and emotional sovereignty. She's lived through betrayal, desire, loss, triumph. She's no longer trying to prove her worth to anyone. She has nothing to prove, and that's why she's the most dangerous mirror a man will ever face. For the man who ignores her, time becomes an enemy. The energy he once used to run from his fears begins to fade. The mask of invincibility slips, and there in the quiet of his own soul, the face of the woman he dismissed returns. Not as a ghost, but as a lesson. Jung taught that what we don't make conscious will return as fate. The ignored woman, the dismissed archetype, comes back in the form of regret, emptiness, or crisis. How many men wake up at 60, realizing they never truly loved, they only chased? How many realize too late that power isn't in control but in understanding? The woman he ignored becomes the voice inside his head asking, "What if you had listened?" This is why Jungian psychology is so brutal. It doesn't let the ego hide. A woman over 50 is a living embodiment of what lies beyond superficiality. She holds the stories of a lifetime. She demands depth and rewards it with truth. For the man who dares to listen, she can awaken his anima, the feminine energy within him that brings balance, empathy, and wisdom. For the man who refuses, she becomes the shadow he can never outrun. The greatest weakness of a man who ignores a woman over 50 isn't that he loses her attention. It's that he loses a piece of himself. He rejects the part of his psyche that could make him whole. He chooses illusion over integration, and in doing so, he condemns himself to live in the shallow end of his own soul. He thought he was protecting his power. In truth, he was burying it. But for the awakened man, the woman over 50 is not a threat. She's a teacher. She shows him how to age without fear, how to love without performance, how to face the shadow and emerge stronger. This is the Jungian journey, the integration of opposites, ego and shadow, youth and age, masculine and feminine. When a man embraces the power of the mature feminine, he stops running from time. He becomes timeless. This is why the greatest kings throughout myth and history revered the wise woman, the oracle, the queen, the elder. She saw beyond the surface. She gave them truth when flattery would have been easier. To ignore the queen is to remain a boy. To face her is to become a man. When you look at a woman over 50, understand, you're not just seeing a person. You're seeing a mirror of your future, a chance to grow or a fear to run from. Your choice determines whether you become a king in your soul or a prisoner of your own ego. And to every woman over 50 watching this, your power is real. It's quiet, deep, unshakable. You are not invisible. You are the storm they fear and the wisdom they crave. The greatest weakness of a man who ignores a woman over 50 is that he never becomes strong enough to meet her. And the greatest strength of that woman is that she doesn't need him to. If this spoke to something deep inside you, if it made you think about your own shadow, your own aging, your own power, then subscribe. Because here we don't just talk psychology, we unmask it. We explore the darkness so you can reclaim your light. In the end, every man must face the mirror he has spent years avoiding. And that mirror doesn't arrive wrapped in softness or flattery. It comes in the form of a woman who no longer plays by the rules. A woman who no longer needs permission to be powerful. A woman over 50. For too long, our culture has romanticized youth as the peak of everything. Love, beauty, significance. But Jung taught us that the journey of the soul is not upward like a flame. It is inward like a spiral. And those who only cling to the outer layers of life never learn how to descend into its depths. A man who ignores a woman over 50 is in truth refusing to descend. He's clinging to the shallow end of the pool, terrified of what lies in the deep. But the deep is where real power lives. It's where the masks fall away, where illusions burn off like morning mist. It's where the feminine no longer seeks to be adored, but to be understood. And in that space, a man can either awaken or break. When he ignores her, he isn't rejecting a person. He's rejecting everything she represents. The wisdom that can't be bought. The strength that doesn't beg. The quiet storm of someone who's already survived the fire. Her presence reminds him that time moves forward whether he looks or not. And if he refuses to look, he becomes smaller with every passing year. But when a man turns toward her instead of away, something extraordinary happens. He sees not just her but himself unmasked. He sees the boy still hiding behind performance, the ego still addicted to admiration, the fear still trembling at the idea of being forgotten. And in seeing that, he has a choice. He can keep running, or he can grow. The mature feminine is not a threat to his masculinity. She is the test of it. She is the unshakable ground against which fragile egos crack, and real strength is revealed. Her power isn't loud, and it doesn't need to be. It's the power of someone who knows exactly who she is and doesn't need anyone's approval to keep being it. A woman over 50 is not the end of desire. She's the beginning of depth. She carries the stories that strip away superficiality. She carries the kind of grace that can't be faked. She carries the mirror every man must one day face. To ignore her is to ignore that moment of truth, and no man escapes it forever. As Jung said, what we do not make conscious will return as fate. One day that man will meet the version of himself he's been trying to outrun. Maybe it will be in a moment of silence. Maybe in a failed relationship. Maybe in the quiet ache of a life spent chasing the shallow. And in that moment, the face he turned away from, the woman he dismissed, the archetype he refused to face, will return. Not to punish him, but to remind him of the depth he could have stepped into. And didn't. But it doesn't have to end that way, because the power of transformation always lives in the present moment. If a man can set aside ego, face the shadow, and see the mature feminine not as a threat but as a teacher, he can reclaim everything he once feared losing. His sense of meaning, his capacity for real love, his ability to grow beyond performance, and to the woman over 50, you are not invisible. The world may try to quiet your voice, but your presence is thunder to those who can truly hear. You are the mirror, the queen, the oracle, the storm. You are not less because they look away. Their blindness does not dim your power. Their weakness does not diminish your worth. If they look away, it is because they fear what they see in you, not because there's nothing to see. But the wise will always turn toward you, because those who can stand in your presence without flinching are the ones who have faced their own shadows and learned to walk through them. The greatest weakness of a man who ignores a woman over 50 is not that he loses her. It's that he loses the man he could have become by standing in her presence. She is not asking to be chosen. She is not asking to be seen. She simply is powerful, whole, and free, and that is what terrifies him. And also, what could save him? So if you've listened this far, understand this. The power you fear is the power you need. The mirror you avoid is the mirror that will set you free. Whether you turn away or turn toward it will decide who you become in the years ahead. And if you are that woman, never shrink for the comfort of those who cannot face their own reflection. Stand tall. Be the storm, because queens do not beg to be seen. They simply rule, even in silence. That is the truth men ignore, and the truth that will outlive them if they keep their eyes closed.